Hi, I'm Ryan. Welcome to the Night Society.
I'm Ken.
Hello, Ken.
Okay, I'll have to repeat on the Night Society.
So, please explain to me, like, how did you come in here and do your investigation? You know, what kind of equipment did you use, and you know, what your process was?
So we have a ton of equipment that we use for our investigations. If you've seen any of the paranormal television shows, you may be familiar with some of this. We have this one here that I have set up is a kind of a REM pod. It's a proximity sensor. So this antenna here is kicking off a field of energy around it. And if I back off and touch it, you can see that it lights up. That's the energy interacting with the device. So we set these around the room to see what we get. A few others that we use, the common one is just an EMF meter. So to read the electromagnetic radiation in the environment. A lot of machinery or wires will kick off energy. We see if this lights up in areas that it shouldn't to see if there's any energy around. A few variations of this are around here as well. I'll let Ken explain a little bit more about his. But two more that we have are the cat ball. This is literally a cat toy, but the way that it works is you press this button, and when there's motion, it lights up. So if there's any vibrations or things moving this, it will light up. We set these around the room.
Sometimes we'll even roll too. We're at main library, we have one rolling across the table with different patterns.
Where was that?
Main library.
In Bellevue.
All right.
And we also have a laser grid here, which I'll be holding it now, so it's be moving a lot, but you can see that it has this grid of green laser here on the wall. When we set this up static in a dark room, the way that you use this, if there's any movement in the room, you can see it by watching the dots on the laser grid either change or blur or move. That's how we can tell there's some motion. Ken, do you want to explain what you set up there?
Sure.
The rope that I put out here is called a para rope. What that does is that's a bunch of little EMF detectors. So that's like this REM pod here, but it's in a line. And what normally happens is a spirit or something, and it'll light up one of them, or it'll run down it, and you'll see all of them. It changes colors. What it'll do, red's like when they're standing right over it, but it'll go yellow, blue, green, and red. This one here is a pair of REM.
That one was him. It's okay.
That one there, you can see it plays music. So when something comes up, and there's like 10 different songs on it, so it depends on where you're at, what time frame of building you're in, you could change the songs to different things. And then this one is just the regular Paralight. It doesn't have the music to it. So.
Which actually, me and Ken, usually when we go to different locations, we'll sometimes sing in that. That's why we have the microphone, so Ken's going to sing for you. Now, we actually have sung before. We've got this tripwire going back and forth. We were in a ballroom. It was like something was dancing on it. So, kind of cool.
So here at this building, there's not a lot of stories of hauntings that we were able to track down associated with this actual property, but it is a landmark theater in the city of Pittsburgh. It's been here for years, so there's certainly a lot of history in this place. And when it comes to hauntings, there are a few different types of them. There are what's called a residual haunting, which would be if there is a spirit that is just repeating something that happened here. So in this case, it could be someone sitting in a chair watching a movie, or people coming down the aisle and finding their seats, or perhaps someone here in the stage area performing. Those are the types of residual hauntings that you can't really communicate with, but you can catch glimpses of what happened in the past. And then there would be intelligent hauntings, which are typically what we're trying to communicate with devices such as this, where you're actually asking questions. You're trying to communicate with an intelligent entity that may still be around. So when we were here, we were focusing first of all on things that maybe people associated with this building, whether they came here and watched films, watched movies, watched performances, or whether they worked here, or perhaps they were involved in an accident or an emergency that happened on Liberty Avenue outside. There's been much of that over the years here in Pittsburgh, and all of these buildings down here have histories associated with them. So we are trying to get in touch with what might be here. So that's the general story of how we started the investigation. Sean, do you want to talk a bit about what happened here in this room, and then we can go to the other locations?
Yeah, we had a flux with us, which actually I have on the car. I didn't bring it in though, but it's this little triangle. We had it up here. It's a yes/no device, basically. Green for yes, red for no, and we had that going off several times. We also had K2 meters, stuff like that, REM pods. We had a Mel meter, which is actually in the car too, but it measures 3 different things, and we kept putting it in different chairs throughout the room and get interactions through it. And if does anybody know what SD session is? It's like a sensory deprivation thing. You put headphones on, you run a spirit box, put a blindfold over, people ask questions in the room. So they were asking questions to me. I was seated in the back of the theater, responding to some of their questions. I don't know what was relevant or not. Like I was the one that was under. But you also, I kept feeling like somebody was walking behind me. Said that numerous times. I feel like somebody's standing behind me. So that was all in the theater. You want to talk about the basement?
Sure. So after we were done in the theater area, we walked down the stairs in the lobby to the basement area directly below us. Down there, we had some very interesting things happen to us. We kept seeing what looked like a shadow moving near the dressing room area, which I guess is kind of right under where we are in this aisleway here. So we kept hearing noises back there and seeing what looked like a shadow. And then we were trying to do some spirit communication down there with our devices, and we're asking what type of movie theater candy they may like, what was their favorite snacks, and Raisinets came up as one of them that I think they liked. There was some excitement about that. So these are the types of things that we were experiencing here. I wouldn't say that they were consistent enough or informative enough for us to say that we were consistently talking to a single entity to the point where we can get an identity or story associated with it. Yeah, there was a lot of children's voices coming on some of the devices that we were using, so that was interesting as well. We don't necessarily have any stories associated with that to share, but just that we were able to make potential communication with something. So it could warrant another investigation at some point if there was any interest in that, but definitely a great theater. And one thing that I think was interesting is you kept mentioning that during events like this, there were some scares in the lower section of the theater. We did get a lot of activity down here. There was the REM pod consistently going off. There was devices happening down here. We also had devices up in the balcony. Nothing happened up there all night. We were asking that to happen. So in the balcony, you may really be safe. Down here, the scares you experience may be part of the show. They may not be. So we're not sure.
So for the purposes of the results of your investigation, you would have to say mixed results. But for the purposes of the Steel City Horror Show, absolutely definitively haunted. Yes?
Okay, great. It's a haunted theater, everybody. And the ghosts, spirits, entities are observing the proper haunt locations. They're listening too. So take a clue from that. I also wanted to mention you have a big event coming up with a documentary of your own.
Yeah, we did the Johnstown Masonic Temple in Johnstown. We did a private investigation. We actually do public investigations too. I have business cards if anybody wants any. But we're going to be doing a release on May 30th. It's the actual anniversary of the Johnstown flood. We're going to be doing it at the temple, and we're actually going to be showing it here too, probably in June, I'd say. But we have a trailer that we'd love to show.
Yeah.
Let's see the trailer for what will be coming up in Johnstown a little later on.
Thank you, everybody.
Round of applause for the Bump in the Night Society.
Johnstown